Right, yeah, so the webinar is actually now being recorded.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, the webinar is about to begin and I'm Nizam, your moderator for today. Okay, first of all, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar. And in this occasion, we would like to have two presentations from Emerald representative. And our first speaker will be Kimberly Chadwick, Book Commissioning Lead, Social Sciences, and William Loh, Business Manager, East Asia. And a topic to be covered for today is publishing research book through Emerald. All right, so let us view our tentative for today. Okay, I would like to get all of your attention to the screen right now. Okay, and okay, I would like to highlight on some of the reminders about the material. Okay, the webinar video, slides, and e-certificate for attendance will be emailed to all participants within 3 days of the event. Okay, so you need to all of you need to take note on that. And yeah, okay, thank you. And okay, to start our session, I would like to invite Mr. Kamal Sujak, Chief Librarian, Siti Asmah Digital Library, to deliver his welcoming speech.
Thank you, Mr. Nizam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our speaker, Ms. Kimberly Chadwick, Emerald Book Commissioning Lead for Social Science, Madam Rosita and Mr. William from Emerald, participants and colleagues to webinar Publishing Research Book through Emerald. This is our second program that we collaborate with Emerald. And the last one was Emerald Review Writing Workshop in the year 2019. This program intends to encourage and provide a unique experience for participants to be an author of a research book with the objective to cultivate a new knowledge about research book publishing and what is the process from submitting the manuscript until it's being indexed in Scopus. Secondly, to promote knowledge sharing between publisher and researcher. And thirdly, to increase Emerald database usage, of course. The webinar will also expose and build the networking between our researcher and the publisher. Researcher will be able to meet the representative and forward their queries and concern about publishing directly to the expert himself. We do hope that more young researchers will publish their research, and our prolific researcher will continue conducting quality research. Lastly, may I take this opportunity to express my fullest gratitude and appreciation to all who participate and work together in this event, and we are looking forward to your continuous cooperation and support to Multimedia University. I hope this event will bring fruitful and beneficial knowledge to all of us. Once again, thank you to Emerald for accepting our request to conduct the webinar today. With that, thank you and salam ramah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kamal, for the welcoming speech. Okay, I think we just go straight to the main event for today. Okay, without further ado, I would like to welcome our first speaker. Okay, for today to deliver her presentation. All right, over to you, Kim.
Thank you, Nusam. So I need to share my slides. We're good.
Hi, Kim. I just sent the request to you. Yeah, here we go.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
Can you see my slides? Is that what we can see?
Yes, we can see your slides. Publishing a research book with Emerald. Yes.
Brilliant. Fab. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Nusajaya and Mr. Kamal, for having us. Thank you so much for inviting us to the webinar today. I'm really pleased to be here with you all and hopeful that this will be some useful information for you. I'm very happy to answer any questions at the end. So I'm going to talk to you about publishing a research book with Emerald, but also give you some general tips about publishing a book with any publisher and what sort of things publishers look for in your proposals and how to kind of demystify the process a bit. So this is what I'm going to talk to you about, what I just said. So we're going to demystify the book proposal process, help you understand what we're looking for, look at some kind of tips and insider knowledge to help maximize success of acceptance, look at different kind of publishing options, talk about indexing of books in Scopus as well as in other indexes I'll give you some information on, and hopefully also answer any questions you have about books. So just to give you a bit of information about myself, moving the slides around, to give you a bit of information about myself. So as Naseem kindly said, I'm the books commissioning lead for social sciences at Emerald, and what that essentially means is that I lead our small team of book publishers in the social sciences, and we help decide which subject areas and topics we want to publish on in our social sciences book program. And then I personally also commission and publish books in the fields of education, communication studies, technology, and healthcare. So quite a broad range. I've worked in academic publishing for 7 years, most of those at Emerald, working across books and journals. And I've worked always in the social sciences, but have commissioned in other areas as well as the ones I'm currently working, including sociology, politics, business, and criminology. And I work with authors from all over the world, so it's always a joy for me to talk with people from different countries, different parts of the world, even if it means an early start or a late start for me. I'm always very happy to speak to people from different places. I think about 50% of or 40% of the authors that I work with are based in the United States. So that often means some quite late nights for me talking to them in their mornings. But then I also work with authors in Australia, in Malaysia, in India, in South Africa. I'm working with an author in Zimbabwe at the moment, so all over the place. And it's a great privilege to be able to work with so many people from over the world. So to get into a little bit more about books, so I just thought I'd give you a quick bit of information about our books. Emerald. So we relaunched our book program in 2016. We did publish books before, but in 2016 we made a significant investment to grow our team of people working on books and to increase the amount of books that we were publishing, to try and offer some kind of really new and innovative things. So we publish 300 or more books a year, and we have several different innovative formats and book types, including open access publishing options, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the formats on a later slide. Our main commitment as a books team and as a publisher is to try and support research in achieving or realizing impact, so reaching research beyond just the university. Absolutely, we try to reach research as deeply into the university as we can as well, but also trying to demonstrate how valuable research is to the real world, and demonstrating the important work that researchers do in helping to solve society's problems. Our program is multi-award winning. We were very blessed last year to be named Publisher of the Year by the Independent Publishers Association, and we've also won several other awards in the 3 years prior as well, which is just a huge honour to be recognised. As you know, we have countries offices all over the world, and colleagues based all over the world, which is part of my joy to be able to work with so many people. And we had over 1.1 million books downloaded in 2020, which for a small little team of people is quite an achievement, I think. So to get into the meat of it, I'll talk to you a little bit now about why and how to publish a book. Start off by thinking about why. And I want to publish a book. For some people, it's very obvious, but for other people, you know, it's obviously a lot more work than publishing journal articles, or a lot more work in one time. And in different countries and different institutions, it's valued more highly. So we always want to kind of give what our perspective is on why we think, you know, it might be good to publish a book. So thinking about how books differ from journals, obviously the biggest difference is that you have a lot more space within a book to kind of write what you want. Your kind of typical journal article word count is probably 7,000 to 10,000 words. Your typical book word count is probably 60 to 100,000 words. So you're kind of talking about 10 times what you can write in a journal article, and it can be a nice way if you have done a very significant research project, or you have loads and loads of data from a project, or you want to bring together lots of different people to write on a particular topic. It can be a nice way to present all of that in one place rather than having to split it out across multiple different journal articles, or even across multiple, you know, publishing multiple different journals. So being able to do it in a book means you can have it all in one place. You can obviously take a more in-depth look into the topic. Surprisingly, the publication timeline can actually sometimes be quicker than it is with journals. We know for many people are kind of across the board, the journal publication timeline can be challenging. It can take a long time because peer review takes a long time, and the kind of revision process can take a long time, and then even reaching publication can take a long time. With books, they are absolutely still peer reviewed, and I can talk about that in more detail in a few slides. But once that has kind of happened, then as soon as the book is written, we can publish it. So it can often be a little bit quicker. I'll go into more depth about how the publication works in a few slides, but it can take anywhere from 12 weeks to 6 months, so 3 to 6 months, which can mean that you can write, if you're writing about something while it's happening or very quickly, you can publish in a really timely way. I'm working with an author at the moment for a book that's coming out in September, which is looking about how communication styles have changed during the pandemic. So that was, you know, obviously written really quickly. It's looking at the use of social media and kind of and traditional media during the pandemic, and how everybody's working from home has shifted the way that we communicate. But obviously, because of those, you know, shorter publication timescales than possibly for journals, we're able to publish that really nice and quickly to get it out while the pandemic is sadly still happening. And you can potentially also reach a broader audience for books than from journals. Arguably, you can reach a more multidisciplinary audience, and potentially also if you're writing for a specific sector, maybe for policymakers, or maybe there's a particular sector of practice that might be interested in your work, then books can sometimes help you reach those audiences. Publishing a book obviously allows you to take your research to the next level. It can bring additional prestige to your career, particularly if you look at maybe working on a series with a publisher, becoming a series editor, or editing a handbook. I'll talk about all those few things in a minute. And yeah, some important considerations to remember about books is that all book content is still peer reviewed. I'll talk about the process in a couple of slides, but it is still peer reviewed, so it still has the kind of scholarly rigor that you would expect from scholarly publications. It's always obviously still very high quality research, and it's disseminated and distributed in the same way as journal articles. As William will tell you when I'm done speaking, we have some fantastic books in our ebook collections, and they are sold and distributed in the same way that the journal articles are, so they are very accessible and easy to find. So that's great. So to dive in a little bit more to the actual process of how publishing a book works, from kind of proposal to your book being published. So the first step really is to submit a proposal, but there's kind of a step before that almost, which could be reaching out to a commissioning editor like myself, or a publisher either at Emerald or somewhere else, to ask about, to give an overview of the book idea that you have in mind, or the research project that you're working on that you would like to write a book about. And so, you can always feel free to reach out to editors and say, I'm working on this research project, or myself and a colleague want to bring together an edited book on this topic from, with contributors from these countries. Is this the sort of thing that would be of interest to you, or would be of interest to your list? On the next slide, I've given you a full list of all of our editors at Emerald and the different subject areas we publish in. So I'll talk to that then, but also it's there for you for when you get the slides. If you ever have any questions or you want to reach out to any of us, please do, and we'll be happy to talk to you. So yeah, so once you've done that, and if the publisher says yes, this is absolutely something we'd be interested in considering, then you could submit a proposal. Every different publisher has their own proposal forms, but they look largely the same. It's asking you to outline what your book is about, what the structure is, what research it's based on, how it draws on the existing literature in your field, what other books have been published on that topic in kind of recent history that the book might draw on, or that it might be seen as its competition, and how your book differs, why you're publishing that book now, what the need is in the field, that sort of thing. And so then the first step, once an editor receives your book proposal, is to do a kind of what we call an internal editorial review. So the editor will assess the proposal's fit against our publishing list and might ask kind of questions or queries of you. I would say here, please don't be put off if you ever approach publishers and at this stage they just say, actually, this isn't the right fit for our list. That normally is no indication of the quality of your proposal. It might just be that the publisher doesn't publish in that field or topic, or it might be if it's a smaller kind of team like we have at Emerald. We are a very successful team publishing lots of books, but we are smaller than some of the very, very large publishers. So it may well be that sometimes we'll get a proposal from somebody, and just a couple of months beforehand we'll have agreed a contract for another book on that exact same topic. And as a smaller list, it doesn't make sense for us to have multiple projects on exactly the same topic in a short space of time. So it could be something as simple as that. So it's often not a reflection on your proposal or your work. It's normally more of a reflection on the direction the publisher or what they're seeking to publish at that time. But we may well ask you questions or raise queries with you or ask you to add more detail to the proposal. Once we are, if we say we're happy to go forward and we're really interested in considering the proposal, it then goes to the peer review process. So this is why we really encourage people to provide as much detail as you can on a proposal form. Anybody that I work with, I really encourage, even though often when you're doing a proposal, it's before you've written any of the book. I often say, spend some time, take a few kind of weeks or months to think about it, spend some time really mapping out, how you're going to structure the book, what kind of detail and information you're going to have in each chapter, make sure you kind of know what literature you're going to be drawing on, or make sure you can neatly outline the methodology of your research, because all of that really helps the peer review process, because the peer review happens kind of at this early stage before actually, in most cases, much, if any, of the book is written. It's really important to really outline clearly exactly what the book's going to do and what you're going to try to offer for the field. So as part of this peer review process, we send the proposals to other expert researchers in your field, or perhaps across different fields if you're working on a kind of multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary topic. And the peer review for books is single blind, so the reviewer will know who the author is, but the author does not know who the reviewer is. And we do this because it's important for a book. We feel it's important to gauge the reviewer's perspective on, why the author is the right person to write that book at that time, because the authorship is a really big importance for a book, so it helps us to gauge that. The peer review process should normally work quite quickly. We always aim to get feedback back to our authors within 4 to 6 weeks. Obviously, at some points of year, that's more difficult, because if it's a holiday season or if people, are off work, then obviously, reviewers have many other, they're also researchers, they have many other things to be doing. But that is always our aim, is for that turnaround time. Once we receive our responses and our feedback from our reviewers, we will share that with you in full, and then the editor will normally kind of pick out the key points from the review if the review has made some, revision suggestions, or if they've asked for the author to look at, somebody else's work because they think they've, missed a part of the field, or whatever recommendations the reviewer makes. The editor will normally kind of pick that out and ask you as the author to respond to them. Depending on the level of revisions suggested, we might ask you to revise and resubmit the proposal, or we might just ask you to respond to it in writing and say, they've suggested that I add an additional chapter on this, and I can do that, and this is how I can do that. So it's a very collaborative process between yourself and your editor, and they will work really closely with you on that. And once we all get to a stage where we're all really happy with the proposal, we think it's gone through the review process, we think it, it's addressed everything that was suggested by the reviewers, and we're really happy with the trajectory of the book, we will then offer you a contract. So we will get approval from our internal editorial board, which is our kind of team of editors, such as myself. So I look at all of the books that we publish in the social sciences at this stage, even for ones where I'm not the editor or publisher. So, we as a kind of the leads of the team, we check that, it's in line with what we're wanting to publish, and that, we think we've pitched it right. And we also check in with our sales and marketing teams for lots of books. But we'll then offer you a contract where we outline the kind of timeline for writing the book, which will be based on what is comfortable for you, the extent, so how long the book is going to be, and we also make you an offer for royalties at that stage as well. And then the next step is the actual writing of the book. So this can take anywhere from a couple of months. So sometimes people have already written much of the book before they submit a proposal, in which case this can be very quick, because it's just to make a few changes or finish a few things off, or it can take several years. if you're just starting out and you need all that time to go away and write it. It completely depends from project to project, and so we base that on your needs. And we will regularly be in touch with you to check in, to see how you're going, to see if there's anything that you need from us. And we give you lots of information and guidance to help you in the writing process, and particularly as you get closer to submitting the manuscript, to let you know what we will need from you with the book itself. And then from there, you send us the book. Our team will do some initial checks on it to make sure that we have all the information that we need. And we might commission a final peer review of the manuscript before we put it into production. This is quite common if the book is in a particular series. Quite often, series editors will want to, read or review a book before we put it into production because their name is associated with it too. Or it might just be that during the initial review stage, it was noted that it would be helpful for the author to have an additional round of review, or it might be it's particularly important in some fields, or an author might specifically request it, so we might do that. But then once we are getting ready to put it into production, we'll check we have everything we have and might send you any questions or bits of additional information we need. And then we send the book to our brilliant production teams, and they will copy edit, typeset, and produce an index for the book. You will kind of be kept informed throughout the process, and you will be sent proofs of the book once it has been typeset, so that you can review them and make sure you're happy with how everything looks, and also respond to any queries raised by our copy editors. And then at this stage, we also finalise the cover design for the book. And in most cases, the book, that production process takes 6 months from when we receive the manuscript to when the book will actually be available, well, in print, and you can get your hands on it. But in some cases, we do it in shorter timescale, 12 weeks or 3 months for short books, which I'll talk about in a little detail in a minute. And at the same time as we put the book into production, we also begin kind of marketing it and selling it. So as soon as it goes into production, we announce it to the market. It goes out on all our feeds to libraries, such as the great one that we're working with today, and it becomes available for pre-sale. It also gets listed in our ebook collections, so that people know who have subscribed to that or are thinking about subscribing to that, know that it is in there. And we'll begin promoting it as well through our different sales channels, and we can support you with promoting the work as well. We might post about it on social media or include it in a marketing campaign we're doing, so that all starts happening as well. And then the book publishes, which is brilliant. And that obviously that isn't the end, because we'll stay in touch with you for long afterwards, and we'll give you additional information on how you can help us promote the book and help it reach the widest possible market. But then the editor that you've worked with will kind of be your contact point throughout this process, and then long after. There's many authors that I work with who I haven't, we last published a book together in maybe 2017, but I still hear from them regularly. It's a very, very collaborative process. So you kind of develop that contact with your publisher, and then you have them for any future ideas, or if you just want to know how the book is going. So yeah, it's a really nice relationship to carry through. So I won't go through this in too much detail because this is just our team, but it's here for you for information when you have the slides after the session. But these are the different subject areas we publish in, and our team that work on them. And there's also a link at the bottom there to a page on our website which gives you more information about how to publish a book with us. It has our book proposal form on there as well, and it also has all of our contact details on here as well. But broadly, we publish in social sciences, which, as I said, I lead, so education and what we call science and society. We also have a great sociology editor and also a criminology editor, although she's currently on maternity leave. And then we also have our business management and economic side of the program, which is led by my great colleague Neil. And he publishes, that's human resource management, organisation studies, tourism. He works with our lovely colleague Fiona, who does all of our accounting, economics, management science, sustainability projects. And then we also have an editor called Iram, who's just started with us, who actually works across every subject area, but publishing books on diversity and inclusion. So that might be gender studies or racial studies or inclusion studies, but in every discipline. So it might be looking at gender in education. One book might be gender looking in education, or another one might be, and gender in the boardroom, or other other topics, but looking at, it's all across all social sciences and business management areas. So it's the diversity and inclusion focus, but across every subject area. So yeah, you'll have this slide when we share the slides later, so that you can look at that all at your leisure. But then I thought I'd talk about some of the different books, book types that we have available, and thinking about what kind of book is right for each author. So the main books, the main academic books are what we call scholarly monographs or edited collections. If it's a monograph, it's normally authored. But this is the bulk of what you see in all publishers' collections. They are like high level, based on specific research projects. They are for an academic audience of researchers and normally postgraduate students. They help to advance the field, scrutinise particular topics or issues, and present new research on the area. They could be absolutely brilliant for presenting, different perspectives on an area, or perhaps if you have an edited book, presenting multiple different perspectives from different countries, which can be really valuable. And yeah, so they're the kind of the vast majority of what we publish, and they're hugely valuable to our list and to our collections. And then we also publish short form books, which at Emerald we called Emerald Points. And these are kind of shorter books, under 50,000 words. They're normally kind of 30 to 40,000 words, so it's probably the length of 3 or 4 journal articles put together. So they are very similar, normally the same kind of research as a monograph, but potentially less high level, or it might be that they're kind of giving an overview of a field or an introduction to a field, or kind of doing a very in-depth literature review, for example. They're really good for when you have too much research to publish just in one article, but not maybe enough for a full monograph. We specifically look to try and publish these on kind of topical areas. So that means that sometimes we can do quick publication and short format turnarounds, so that we can kind of respond to hot topics and issues such as COVID right now is an example of that. And they can also be helpful for extending to a broader audience. So like I mentioned earlier, we quite often use these books for going towards, for trying to reach policymakers, or if there's a particular, as somebody who works in, who publishes education books, we quite often publish books for higher education that are aimed at specific roles within universities, but aren't necessarily researcher roles. So I've done a book recently that is kind of aimed at student support officers, or kind of student liaison officers who kind of help undergraduate students navigate their time at university. We've also recently done a book about setting up coaching and mentoring programs at universities that's in this kind of format. So you can sometimes aim at specific kind of practices, either within the academy or outside of it. And then a few other types of books. There's also handbooks, which are a really great way of being involved in a book that can be really, really influential in its field. So the idea of a handbook is to provide a kind of comprehensive and often global kind of coverage that surveys and defines the field or the particular kind of topic or subdiscipline within the field. And they are normally edited by kind of leading experts in the field and have contributions from authors all across the world often, and often from different parts of the discipline. They are massive, normally upwards of 30 chapters. So they're really, really big. And the idea is that they can kind of be a one-stop shop for that topic. So that it should be the only book that you would need to read on that topic, or perhaps one of the only books that a library would need to stock on that topic, because it kind of covers it in such depth. But again, the audience is are the research audience, postgraduates, and potentially for some topics upper level undergraduates as well. It might be that some of the chapters would be used in courses, and then we also publish a couple of other types of books, and these are a much smaller part of our program, but are quite an exciting part. So what we call scholarly highlights, which are works written by academics, but written in a really accessible way, that are aimed at a kind of much broader reader. So we're very, we only do a handful of these kind of books a year, and primarily in our Society Now series, which looks at what some of the biggest kind of issues and challenges of the 21st century are, and not necessarily how to solve them, because many of them are questions that are too big to solve, but kind of what the kind of state of play is now and what can be done at the next step. So there's a couple of examples there on the slide. One which is about the food industry in a kind of era of climate change, and the other one is the one I mentioned earlier, which is about communicating COVID-19, which looks at how communication changed during the pandemic and also looked at the spread of conspiracy theories. And then we do also publish professional books, which are normally for a kind of business audience, which are written by practitioners or academics with market experience working with companies, and they provide tools and techniques and insights for specific markets. And again, we only publish a very small number of these per year, so it's very selective, because we have to be we can only publish a small number of them, and so we have to kind of choose wisely which ones we publish. But we've done some great books in this program, looking at things like leadership and being a communication leader. We did a great one a few years ago about autonomous driving. So it's an exciting part of the list. Ooh, next slide. So some considerations you might want to think about if you're thinking about writing your first book. So we often encourage first-time book authors to consider working with a co-author. It can be really helpful to allow you to kind of gain experience of working with your peers, maybe across departments, or somebody from a different institution, even somebody from a different country. It can be particularly beneficial if you are working in a topic that has relevance to several different disciplines, so it can allow you to cross across those disciplines. I also really encourage this for edited books. I think it's a great way to be able to bring multiple different perspectives to an edited book. If you are potentially working on a topic that you can look at internationally or multinationally, if you can work with a co-editor that's based in another country to yourself, and you can both work with your own networks to bring in different contributors who can offer different kind of country perspectives to the topic, which can be really valuable. Also, just thinking about what's realistic for you. One of the main things that we try to do when we working with new authors is to really think about how realistic the timeline is, and really make sure that you've got the kind of support and bandwidth that you need to be able to do the book, because we always want the writing experience to be a happy one for our authors, and we don't want it to be an additional stress on their lives. So making sure that you kind of have the time and support you need to write a book, and what we can do to help you with that. So on to my next slide. So to give you a bit of information, this is specifically what the sort of things that we're looking for at Emerald. I won't go through all of these in too much detail, but as I kind of mentioned earlier, one of the things, the thing that drives us is looking to support and publish impactful research. So research that we can, that helps us demonstrate the value of research in broader society, and how brilliant the work is that is done within universities, and how that is helping move society forward. That's really what we're all about as a publisher, and particularly what we want to demonstrate in our book program. And we are always really keen to represent diverse views and voices. We really spend a lot of time and kind of go out of our way to make sure that we have great diversity on our list, that we're publishing authors from all different countries, that we're publishing diverse viewpoints and topics. And that's really important to us, that we're not just presenting kind of one perspective or one nation's perspective. Is that we really want to have a kind of diverse list that offers that kind of worldwide view. So we look for projects that kind of take a fresh approach, or offer a new critique of their field, or a new critique of the topic. We particularly look to publish work that is trying to address key challenges or issues facing society, industry, or policy. So we have kind of several missions that we are kind of keen to help publish along, thinking about things like achieving quality education for all. And a lot of what we do here is aligned to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So looking at how society and the world can help achieve those goals, and help create a kind of more just and fairer society. And yeah, so we're keen to support growing subdisciplines. So if this is something that we've done a lot in the past few years as we've grown the program, is if we've worked with people who are actually trying to forge a new path, or trying to grow a particular area of research, then we've often worked with people to develop series, which can be a great way to help shape the discipline. So specific questions we're looking at in the social sciences, some of those missions that I mentioned. So how can we ensure access to quality education for all? So some kind of topics and questions we're interested in are things like equal access to digital technology, and how that can improve educational experience, particularly for the poorest in society. How can we ensure that children in the poorest parts of society aren't left out of an opportunity to great education if they don't have access to the digital technology, particularly during this past year when that's been really crucial. Can collaborative learning succeed if learners have diverse cultural backgrounds? How can that work in practice? How can you ensure that all the learners, and particularly if that's children in a classroom, how can you ensure that they're all well supported? If they if you have a really diverse classroom, particularly if you're dealing with multiple languages, or if students are learning not in their native language, how can they better be supported? And what can universities do to support learning success of their students via online or blended learning? Lots of universities are brilliant at that. Other universities, it's more new to them. So what can people who are newer to that learn from those who do it so well already? Another big mission we're looking at is how can we address some of the key inequalities in society. So looking at things like institutional racism, the gender pay gap, income inequality, and then also our other mission here is supporting healthier lives. So an interesting topic that we've been talking about, and particularly looking at with some of our US-based authors, is universal health coverage a human right? Is there a direct correlation between leadership and patient outcomes? And can addiction be tackled more effectively if it's treated as a mental health issue? So all these really interesting and provocative questions. We don't specifically look for books that are based on those questions, or that necessarily have all the answers, but these are the kind of questions that are guiding us in the work that we're looking to publish. Is trying to chip away at those questions. Realistically, no one book or no tens of books is going to solve any of those big questions, but each kind of piece of research moves us forward step by step, and so we want to be part of that step. And then some of the things we're looking at on the business management and economic side are what are the kind of benefits offered by responsible management practices. So thinking beyond, for example, corporate social responsibility, what really can businesses do to make sure that they are responsible in their practices and that they are contributing to society. So looking at social enterprises, looking at the issue of tax avoidance, and looking at the service economy, and if there's an over-reliance on that, and what impact that then has on the workforce and on society itself. Also, we're looking at fairer society, which we're obviously also looking at in the social sciences, but we're looking at that from a business perspective. So what can businesses do to close the gender pay gap? How should businesses address the kind of essentially like income inequality or pay inequality between, you know, the highest perform, you know, the most important or highest performing people in the business, the chief executives and their employees, and what kind of role do businesses and NGOs play in foreign aid, and how can that help tackle poverty? And then also a big question for us on this is looking at the future of work. So sorry, that was my doorbell and now my dog is going to bark. Sorry about that. And yeah, so what kind of forces are shaping the future of work? So how is the workforce and the workplace changing? What does that mean for people? What does that mean for businesses? How are new technologies like blockchain and cryptocurrency playing a role in that? And is remote working or working from home now the normal after the pandemic? And what will that mean for the economy of cities? So that's kind of some of the things that Emerald is specifically looking at. So now I just want to give you some tips and tricks about writing your proposal. I'm conscious of time, so please tell me if I need to speed up. So there's just some things that you can do to make your proposal stand out to an editor. Make sure you think about, I think one of the things with writing a book proposal often is, although editors that you're sending it to will be, you know, they are subject matter experts in their field, but we are not researchers. Most of us don't have a, sorry, that's my doorbell again. Most of us don't have doctoral degrees. Some of us do, but not all of us do, and it's not a requirement. So, and even if we did, we can't be an expert on every single topic. So we are looking for, in a proposal, we're looking for the things that really stand out, that make it accessible for a reader. How does somebody who may well be a researcher in your field, but obviously probably isn't an expert on your specific topic because you're the expert on that specific topic, how are you making that, how are you communicating that, how are you making that readable to other people in your field, how are you making sure that people can engage with it? So really writing in a clear way, making sure you structure the book well, and writing in a way that guides the reader through it. We look at your kind of previous publishing experience, what contribution the book is making to the field. Try and think about any application to future research or practice or even policy that your book might offer, and if you're going to address that specifically at any part of the book. And just clear and kind of detailed as you can be. I think is a really important thing for making your proposal stand out. Excuse me. Key elements. I'm going to skip through this one quite quickly because I'm keen to get to the topic of Scopus, because I know that's something that you all want to hear about, and I'm conscious of running out of time. But again, kind of general tips is, like I've said, make sure that you kind of provide as much detail as clearly as you can, but also make sure you read the form carefully. Most publishers' book proposals forms look similar, but we often ask for particular things. So on our book proposal form at Emerald, we ask you to think about if you think your proposal, or if you think your book has a kind of interdisciplinary appeal, or if you have worked in an interdisciplinary way on your research, because we're really keen at kind of breaking down, you know, barriers between disciplines and making kind of knowledge and research more accessible to all researchers across academia. And so that's a specific thing that we ask in our proposal form, but also there are just important things that publishers and reviewers need to know in order to assess a proposal. So read the form carefully and answer as fully as you can. More is better than less. Like, I would always prefer to receive a 30-page book proposal than I would to receive a 3-page book proposal. 30 pages is probably a little bit much, but I'd always prefer it to be on the long side than on the short side, because the short side is always just going to look incomplete, or like you haven't fully thought through the idea yet, or that it's just not fully realized, and that's just not going to make your proposal look weaker to the publisher and also to reviewers. And think about how you connect your work to the field. Like I've said, make sure you draw on the work that's come before your book, and how your work is going to play a role in your field and how it's going to contribute to it. Oh, my slides are so to think. I mean, and these are the same things that I've said before, but these are the things that editors are looking for. We want that clear and concise narrative. It's often very difficult as the author of a proposal or a book to think about what your selling points are, because you're so close to it. It can be quite difficult to step back and think about that, but that's something that we always want to try and get a hold of and get an idea of. So I often suggest to people, like, if you're having a hard time trying to think what your selling points are, ask one of your colleagues, show them your proposal, or somebody that you trust, one of your peers, and say, you know, well, if you were to see this book, what do you think would be unique about it? And that could really help you to frame that. Really think about who your audiences are, particularly your primary and secondary audiences, and why do they need this book? Why this book now? What do you as the author offer to that readership, and also what networks do you have to that intended readership that can help those people read your book once it's published? And also look at competing titles. I'll leave you to read that one for yourself. I'm going to skip through this one because I have another slide about promotion in a minute. We've talked about peer review. So I'm just going to get to the dissemination part so that I can talk about Scopus as well. But first off is just a plea, whenever you're writing a book proposal, or also this goes for journal article titles as well, is titles and subtitles of books are really key to getting noticed. And although catchy or innovative titles, or things that play on puns, or that sound really cool, they might look good on a cover, but they will very rarely help you to be discovered. So much of how people find books and research and content, like you will all know this as researchers yourself, is by searching either in your library database, or on platforms like Scopus, or even just on Google or on Google Scholar. You will be searching for research on that topic, and so you will be searching by keyword. You will be looking for contemporary perspectives on human research management, or leadership in the 21st century, or high school education in India. Like, you will be searching for specific topics. And so if book titles don't have those kind of keywords in them, then they're not going to come up in those search results. So although it might seem a bit more boring, descriptive titles are the way to go. And I'd encourage that for journal articles as well. If you want to use like a kind of fun and catchy title, put it as a subtitle and make your main title the descriptive one, because that will help you come up in search engine results, or even on Amazon results where people are searching for books on there. It's just really important. So for example, if somebody was writing a book about sustainable supply chains and supply chain management, a book title called Sustainable Supply Chain Management will be much easier for readers to find than Green is the New Gold, which sounds really exciting and cool, but it doesn't tell you anything about what that book is about. This is thinking about how you can help promote your book once it's published, and always working with your publisher on this. These are kind of things that we recommend to the authors that we work with. Put your book in your email signature. Talk about your book when you speak, if you speak at conferences or give presentations. Tell your colleagues about it. I have several authors that I work with. We've made posters for them, so they stick posters of their book covers up on their office doors so that their colleagues can see them. talk about your book on social media. Your publisher will often help with that as well. Like, we will often tweet about the books that we publish, or maybe put them on LinkedIn or even Facebook if it's the right space. Talk to your librarian, like the lovely ones that we're working with today. Make sure that you've told them that you've published a book and who you published it with, and how they can make sure that they have it in the library, either digitally or in print, and how you can help them do that. You can always get a flyer for your book so that you can share that with your colleagues or at conferences, or you can just always have them in your bag to give them to whoever you meet. Try and encourage, if you have some people that you really respect in the field, maybe there's other researchers that you've worked with before who weren't involved with the book, or maybe somebody whose work you really drew on in your book, somebody who has been really influential to you. You can reach out to them and ask them if they'd be happy to provide a review of your book, and the publisher can give them a copy of the book so that they can do that. And they can either review the book in a journal article, or they can just write, you know, a review which can be a snippet of which can be like kind of put on the cover of your book. And it's a really good way. I worked with somebody a few years ago, an author in Australia, who emailed every single person he cited in his book, with, you know, hundreds of people. But he wrote an email. He's just sent all these people, just said, I just wanted to let you know that I cited your work in my book and it had an influence on this, and I just wanted to thank you for your work that you've done, because it helped me shape my own. And he got an overwhelmingly positive response to that, and I know that it's created relationships for him that he didn't have before with other researchers in his field. And it also like helped his book to be really successful, because these people were interested to know that their work had been used and cited in this new book. So they wanted to read it. So that can be a really great way. Don't be afraid to tell people about the great work that you've done. It's something, I mean, I'm a British person, we're really bad at that. We're really bad. We're quite humble people, we're very bad at kind of self-promotion, but it can be really supportive. And particularly, you know, if you've spent years or months writing something, you should be proud of the work that you've done there, and proud to tell people about it. And there's a few other things on the bottom there, such as registering with particular services like Kudos, which can help you to build your profile, and also things like Amazon Author Central, which is a platform on the Amazon website, and like a free kind of service that allows you to share information about anything that you've published. It's used a lot by fiction authors, but there's no reason why it can't be used by non-fiction and scholarly authors as well. And just keep in touch with your publisher. And so now on to the bit that I know you're really keen to hear about, the Scopus. So I'll make this my last slide so that I can hand over to William to speak. The way that indexing works in Scopus for books is that Scopus accepts a publisher, and once they review, like evaluate publishers and their book programs, and then once they have accepted the publisher, all books that publisher publishes are indexed in Scopus. And so that is the case for Emerald. Scopus have accepted Emerald as a publisher, and so all of our books are sent to Scopus immediately on publication and should be indexed by them soon afterwards. I will preface or say here that we have had, Scopus have had some technical difficulties recently that we've been working with them on. So at the moment, a lot of our books aren't showing in Scopus when they should be, but that's an issue on Scopus's side. So we're working with them to resolve that. But that is the way that it works, is that all books that we publish are sent to Scopus on publication and should be indexed very soon afterwards. Every book we publish is also submitted to several other indexing services, including the Book Citation Index, which is part of Web of Science. So books, we submit every single book we publish to the Book Citation Index. And these are subject to evaluation, so they're not automatically accepted like books are in Scopus. But we find that about 90% of the books that we publish are accepted into the index. Normally, if they're not, it's because they're books from that really professional side of our list, where there's just, you know, that they're not really, the academics aren't the main library, so that makes sense. Or just sometimes if it's in a topic or subject area that Web of Science doesn't cover yet, although those are very few and far between these days because it's such a huge index. And we can also submit books to specific subject indexes. So we submit some economics books to EconLit, which is important for economics scholars. And then also, obviously, all our books are also indexed in Google Scholar and also in Dimensions. And we also track alt metrics for our books, so looking at the non-citation based results or indices for a book. So looking at how many times it's been mentioned on social media or in policy reports or even in blogs or news articles or anything like that. So looking at the kind of whole picture beyond just the citation. But yeah, so that's how that works. And I will leave it at that. And I'm sure there's some questions, but I'm conscious of William having some time, so I'll stop talking.
It's okay. You can have all your time.
All right. Thank you, Kim, for the informative and interesting talk. Okay. And next, I would like to invite Mr. William to deliver his presentation. Okay, William.
Thank you, Nizam, and thank you, Kim. I mean, for me, I'm really there are a lot of things for me to take home and to digest. I believe is for our audience as well. It's a great sharing for today. Besides I'm speaking that, I'm also trying to do a setting for myself to share my screen too. Right. Nizam, are you able to see my screen right now?
Yeah, can.
All right. Okay. For my presentation, it's actually very short. I'm actually doing mainly on the promotion of Emerald book, and which books that I will be I've picked and share for today. So these are some of the example. We want to share these PowerPoint slides after the webinar in an automated email. And once you find the PDF copy, you can see that every of these book picture has a link embedded to it. So this will brings you to the book itself, right? So these two books are basically I handpicked it because both of these books has the author from the MMU, from the Multimedia University itself. So example, so issues and challenges in the Malaysian economy. So this is the professional book, very specific title on the Malaysia economy itself. And this is actually part of what we call Emerald Points that Kim had shared just now. Emerald Points, which is a book that are basically lower, having shorter pages in compare with the normal books that we have. So we have a few book editors over right here, and the first editor is Encik Muhammad, Mr. Muhammad Fahmi from the MMU Synergy, which is the commercial arm of Multimedia University on the short courses, industry collaboration, and also the training provider. So another highlighted book, which is the Emerging Issues in Islamic Finance, Law and Practice in Malaysia. There are three. You can see that there are three book editors right here. Out of the three book editor, we have Prof. Umar Oseni. Prof. Umar Oseni is currently the Chief Executive Officer of the International Islamic Liquidity Management Corporation. Before that, he was the associate professor. You may know him when he was associate professor in the RIUM. And also Prof. Kabil Hassan, well-known name, and also Associate Professor Rusni Hassan from IUM. So over here we have also three MMU authors that have contributed one chapter, which is chapter 12, under the FinTech and Transformation of the Islamic Finance Regulatory Framework in Malaysia. Well, this is something just to highlight that we have authors from the MMU. Besides that, I'm not going to go through that. I just want to let you know that there are books where we can find contributions by Malaysian or authors that are actually currently residing in Malaysia. So 2021, there are a few books here and here as well. And also in 2020, there are also quite some books. Example, Dr. Fazana from UTM on her CSR book, and the Prof. Glenda from Sunway University on the higher education's sustainable developments on the leadership and teaching and learning itself. So these are some of the very interesting books where there are either the book editors or book chapter authors that are from Malaysia or residing in Malaysia currently, right? Right, you may have known that, well, Emerald has won awards. I mean, for we have few awards, and some of the awards and some award-winning books that actually covers, which are also here. I'm not gonna go through that, but this is just to give you an idea what kind of books that are being well known in the Emerald holdings. Yeah. And my last one is basically on some, sales and from the business perspective. There are 17 award-winning books under the Emerald itself, two portfolio over 2,600 books available in Emerald, and also proud winners in the Professional Publisher of the Year 2019 and also 2020. Our books can be purchased or it can be subscribed yearly itself. Not going to go through that. You can actually look it into that. So basically, that's all from me. Before we moving on to Q&A sessions by Mr. Nizam, allow me quickly just to bring this to highlight to what Kim mentioned earlier, because I think this is very important. Allow me to actually share this. Kimberly had shared with us just now on some key highlights, what editors are looking for, some of the topics, themes, and things like that. In Emerald, if you were to go to our corporate website, which is called Emerald Group Publishing, if you were to go to under our goals itself, we have identified 4 goals under our company that we align with the UN SDG, sustainability, real impacts, topics such as this. So you may have seen this keyword in Kimberly's presentation earlier: fairer societies, responsible management, and quality education for all. So just for example, if I were to click here, quality education for all, you're going to see that this big theme, quality education for all, where we actually support SDGs related to the theme itself. And over here, you can find more information. Either that would be in our journal articles or even in our special issues, call for paper, and even in our related books too. So there are some questions from the participants. They are asking for samples. Can I actually have a sample from Emerald books? Yes. So you can actually look out in our bookstores, Emerald bookstore, or else you can come to our corporate websites where you can go and explore that. Some of our related books does provide some samples of our chapters, so you can download those sample chapters to explore, perhaps, yeah, to explore, to actually have a read into that. With that, I pass the floor to Nizam, and coming back to my PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you, William, for the very insightful sharing. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, now we have come to the Q&A session. And for information, you can post your question at the question box, and our speaker will try to answer your question. Okay, let me quickly check the question that have been posted. Okay, the first one from Albimanto Tanjung. Okay, the question is, does the book just publish in English, or can the English book also publish in other languages?
Right, yes.
It's a good question. We get that a lot. So at Emerald, we only publish in English, unfortunately, right now. So we only publish our books in English, but we do often work with publishers in different countries to either sell the translations rights, or if it's really important to an author, we can let an author retain the language rights to a different language. So if you wanted to be able to republish the book in Malaysia, and I've just worked with somebody who wanted to keep the French language rights of their book because they're based in France. So we can do that. So if you want to then be able to publish your work in your native language as well, then there's options for that. But we only publish in English.
Okay, thank you. And our second question is from Dana Kristiawan. How the sharing profit from the Emerald publishing with the writer? Is it better than Routledge?
Mean question. Yeah, so we offer all authors a royalty on the books we publish with them. We would say that we offer a very competitive royalty in the industry. We do always try to offer more than some of the other publishers, but because we're a smaller team, and so we can maybe be a bit more flexible on that. But yeah, we always offer authors a royalty, and I mean, you can always negotiate as well. So that way it might not change it, but ask and see what happens.
Okay, it's good to hear that. All right, our third question is from Mashraki Mustari. Okay, hello, good afternoon. Thanks for this wonderful session. Is it possible to publish book which will be consist of my previous published articles?
It's a good question, Retrieve. Thank you. So normally we normally don't publish books that are made up of previously published articles, and purely because of the way that most people access books now. Most people access books online or through library collections, like William was just saying, and so that means that there isn't as much value in these days in publishing a book made up of previously published articles, because those articles are still available. So you're kind of just presenting something that's already available there for people to see. We do say if you've written several articles over the past and you want to kind of refresh some of those, or you want to bring together your kind of body of research that you've been doing through your career, but you want to maybe put a kind of new lens or new perspective on it, or kind of go back and review some of the some of the work that you've previously done, then you can base a book on your kind of body of work as a researcher, for sure. And if there's one or two articles that you've published before that would be included in that, more or less unchanged, then as long as you can get permission from the previous publisher to do that, we would be happy to consider that. But in general, we say not to just publish a book full of previously published works, because it doesn't offer that much to libraries or to other researchers, because they can find those things other anyway. Better to just make sure you have a good either make yourself a website, or make sure you have a good place on if you can have a page on your university's website that can list all your publications, or just have a great CV so you can make sure you can point to everybody to your publications.
All right, so our next question is from Michael Capina. Is there any guidelines on the topic required by the publisher in making the proposal? Thank you.
So yeah, so I mean, I'd say that some of the things that I talked about in the presentation is making sure that you present your give as much detail as you can in your proposal form, and writing it in a really clear way, but also thinking about what if you were looking to read a book on that topic, what you would be expecting to see. So what are some of the if you were looking for a new book in your field, like if you were really looking for something to read, or if you were looking to help you with something in your research, what would you be looking for, and trying to put that into your proposal so that it's there for other readers to see. I'd say as well, whether it's for interest in publishing a book with Emerald or for any other publisher, look at the publisher's websites, on all of their corporate websites. There's always tips about what we're looking for in proposals, tips on how to structure your proposal form, how to have success with that. So always have a look at publisher websites, and like I said at the beginning of the presentation as well, make sure you look at what subject areas the publisher publishes in, because we don't all publish in all subject areas at Emerald. We only publish in kind of a handful of stuff. We don't publish anything in the medical sciences or in the the hard sciences. We only really publish in the social sciences. So look at what subject areas different publishers are publishing in. Look at what series different publishers have as well. If there's particular book series that you're aware of, or if there's particular people that who have written for a publisher before, ask them about their experiences, and then get an understanding from them about how their proposal process went. There's lots of people you can talk to get information, and just send editors emails and ask them, and they'll be happy to help you.
Okay. All right. I think this one will be the last question because we are about running of time. All right. The last question will be from Rama Koteswara Rao Kondasani. Can I publish my thesis into book? Please let me know the process.
That's a good question. Thank you. Yes, so we do publish books that are based on theses, but normally, so we don't just do, like, it's not just like a straight, we take your thesis and publish it as a book. We normally ask you to kind of work on developing your thesis. So we have some tips and stuff on our website. I know also one of my colleagues is currently recording a podcast about this, about tips for how to turn your thesis into a book. But we say, you know, you have to just slightly think about an audience for a book is going to be different to the audience for your thesis. Your thesis is written for, you know, your examining board for your PhD, but, you know, and also for you. But, you know, so it's sort of written with a very specific audience in mind. The audience for your book, for a book, should be much broader because it should be able to be read by kind of anybody in your field or, you know, related disciplines. So we often work with authors to kind of think about how to make that book broader, or, you know, take your thesis and turn it into a book. There's lots of resources online as well, lots of blog posts and stuff like that that I often recommend to people for tips and advice on how to do that. But that's absolutely something that you can do. And yeah, just always, most publishers do publish books that are based on theses, and because, you know, that's 3-4 years of original research that's been done, so it's fantastic quality research, and so we want to be able to help publish it and help promote it. So you definitely can just talk to a publisher about the kind of the best steps for thinking about converting it.
Okay, thank you, Kim, for the answer. All right, since we have quite limited time to entertain all the questions, so please, you can email to us, leapdesk@mmu.edu.my, or Emerald itself, okay, asia@emerald.com. All right, okay, ladies and gentlemen, finally we have come to end part of our webinar. Oh, okay, Mr. William. All right.
I'm so sorry, Nizam. No, I wanted to end that, but before we go into the next slide, there's actually there are a few questions that I find interesting that I would also like to highlight. That is actually regarding about the publication fees. So if I could, you know, just get this into this part of the Q&A itself. Are there any publication fees to publish a book in Emerald?
There are no publication fees for publishing a book with Emerald. We will never charge you for publishing a book. Emerald always covers it. The only exception is if you want to publish the book open access.
Yes.
And then in that case, then there will be, you know, research funding or something to support that. But if you're just publishing a normal book, there are no publication fees.
Yes. So basically that. So for those questions from the floor, they're asking if you have financial, you know, challenges or some budget issue, do not need to worry. Publication with Emerald in terms of journal, books, even cases are actually free. You do not need to pay any publication fees with Emerald unless you opt to have your articles or your papers, your books in the open access model. Then yes, you will need to pay the ABC. But in our normal books, normal journals, there are no publication fees. So yeah, thank you for that. And we are going to the concluding remark. Thank you, Nizam, back to you.
All right, okay. We would like to say thanks again to Emerald Publishing, okay, especially to our speakers, okay, for the informative and interesting talk, and also to our audience for your time and participation. All right, and I hope and we hope that this presentation will be beneficial to everybody here, okay. And thank you for your attention. And with this, I end with Assalamualaikum and stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Nizam. Thank you, Sheikh Kamal. Thank you to all the participants. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.